The scene is set within the champagne room of the Black Orchid, closed to the public as it is a Sunday night, and there is very little call nor a particularly strong amount of business on this particular day. And so Prince Stanhope is the run of the room. He drinks from a large glass of vita supplied to him by his barman. And about 30 minutes after the entourage of Anarchs leave, a new appointment appears for the Nosferatu Sir Thaddeus Winthorpe, who the Prince has summoned to attend him this evening.
Thaddeus will arrive outside the club, and before leaving the lush leather upholstered interior of his 1920s Bentley, he will pull down the mirror and make sure that he looks presentable. He is a little bit nervous at being summoned to see the Prince, as rightly one should be, and he wants to make sure that he makes a good impression. His appearance is not particularly well made. The nerves seem to have got the better of him, and he makes a note to himself that he needs to again focus more of his energies on mastering the subtleties of his obfuscation. So he pulls the collar of his long coat up around his face, holds his umbrella down low, and puts his hat on low on his head to cover it as much as possible, and darts quickly into the building and is directed up towards the champagne room.
Having been there before, Mr. Thaddeus wastes no time heading towards the indicated room which he's been summoned to meet the Prince. When he enters, he sees the Prince very much alone on a singular table with a glass of vitae in hand. He seems to just be sitting in contemplation, his eyes a 1,000-yard stare, not saying anything, almost as still as a statue. He's not blinking, he's simply there. A certain aura of menace radiates from the Prince at this particular point, when he's in full plotting mode. But seeing you, his icy visage melts away, and he gives a warm greeting and a smile. "Ah, Sir Winthorpe, peace."
Sir Thaddeus will bow at a medium distance, as is required in these situations. With a warm smile, he will hand his coat and hat to one of the aides in the background for them to hang up, while he keeps hold of his little case and stands by the table, smiling pleasantly, waiting for the Prince to indicate for him to sit.
The Prince gestures towards a seat and takes a measure of the portly Nosferatu. Knowing that his mask usually covers most of his features, it still sometimes betrays a level of nervousness perhaps in it, but it's only a glancing look. He does not really mind nor care exactly Mr. Winthorpe's position at the moment. So intent is he on his goal, he simply, as soon as he sits down, says, "So, Mr. Winthorpe, I hear you're making great inroads into the city in such a short amount of time."
Well, my Prince, I don't like being a fifth wheel in any of my endeavours. I find it best to be a productive member of society, and I do hold a particular place in my heart for the endeavour that you have brought forth upon the Camarilla. It strikes a particular chord with me, and so I find myself perhaps motivated more than others may be to ensure its overall fruition.
That is good to hear. It is always good to enjoy one's work, Mr. Winthorpe.
Ah, yes, my particular line of work takes me back to the similar work that I carried out in my kindred days. It is a particular art, shall we say, much in the way that the Toreador consider themselves artists. In other endeavours, a artistic bent is required.
We think very archer-like. I called you here this evening for a very particular query. It seems that you have shown an interest within the media of the city. Is this the case?
I do have particular media contacts, yes.
Well, it has come to my attention, with the trouble going on within the city, that the media has been an untapped vessel, and although one of the many coteries is tackling said influence, it has become paramount for the court to be able to manipulate the media, seeing as, well, masquerade breaches are our highest priority as members of our illustrious sect. So, I wish to, let's say, share in the wealth of your ingenuity, Mr. Winthorpe. I would like to help you in your endeavours, and in turn be perhaps allocated a slice of the pie.
Very well. And this pie you so kindly mentioned, what exactly would you be willing to provide to assist a lowly newcomer to the city such as myself?
Well, I must fake my ignorance in such matters. Fake my ignorance? No, that's what I'm supposed to be thinking. I must defer my ignorance in such matters, Mr. Winthorpe. I am a humble businessman. I know very little of the media and its ins and outs. This is why I need your expertise, of course. I simply would follow your fiddle, as it were, if you need financial aid or perhaps other avenues of influence which I can poke and prod to make things a little easier for you.
Well, there is one thing that you might do that could make this endeavour easier. You mentioned that you have already tasked a coterie with this particular venture.
Indeed.
Now, I currently don't know who that might be. So obviously the coteries are all being very tight-lipped about their various tasks and who their various coterie members are. So obviously deferring to your better judgment, but I think it would be advantageous to either A, pull the coterie off that particular task entirely, and therefore allowing me to work with a free rein, or B, letting me know who this coterie are and giving me, shall we say, the ability to guide them in such a way as to ensure that we don't end up interfering unexpectedly and unknowingly in each other's enterprises.
Well, I am kept abreast of most of the things within the coteries. If you would simply tell me your areas of interest in the media, I can make sure that the coteries and your own machinations do not collide.
Well, currently my area of specialization is the printed news. Obviously, you must understand that from the methods I use, I prefer to keep an element of secrecy in order to maintain the longevity and usefulness of the contacts I create. But I have the services on retainer for one of the most highly circulated editions within New Sarum currently, and if you wish me to spread my wings a little farther abreast into perhaps the televisual, radio, and this online malarkey that I hear these days is apparently so prevalent, again, it may be useful to know if there are any who are already making inroads in these areas.
Well, I think the printed news is a wonderful idea. You see, unlike any gestures our day, it seems printed news is being very, let's just say, it's very old-fashioned. It is in a lot of trouble financially, which is why many newspapers branch out into the internet and into other such avenues. They're so eager to get the story, to make sure that their particular format isn't considered redundant, that they, well, let's just say they are much more useful. How about You continue with your avenues, Mr. Winthrop. I merely wish for, let's just say, the ability to push and pull the investigative reporters of the newspapers, see what they find out, being able to leech their information or set them forth on a new story, if it so pleases me. Of course, the rest of the industry is completely at your disposal, and quite a boon. In fact, if you do this for me, give me a reliable web of contacts that I can push and pull in various directions, you simply have to name the particular newspaper or series of newspapers, and I can consider that all printed word in relation to the news will be the domain of Sir Thaddeus Winthrop.
Sir Thaddeus leans back in his chair, and you see him arch his fingers, drum them on his chin momentarily as he thinks about this. It is certainly a generous offer, my prince. Currently, as I say, I am a relative newcomer to the city, and although I have made some headway in asserting myself among the printed media, currently I have only but one title under my belt, if you will. Once I have managed to accrue more leeway, I will certainly come back and notify you of other titles that I have managed to put at my disposition. However, I think it's only fair that I explain to you my methods, so there is no misunderstanding. As I have said to you previously, when it comes to garnering these contacts, when it comes to creating them, I find it best to, a useful allegory is that of a gardener growing a delicate rose. There are specific things that will work on one breed of person or plant that will not work on others. Some, as I'm sure you know, cannot be manipulated through force, and one must apply pressure on other points in order to specifically influence that specific person. And so I grow almost attached, if you will, to the people that I seek to manipulate. That is why I find it necessary to keep their specific identities secret and known only to myself. Of course, should you wish to use those facilities, as it were, I have no qualms whatsoever in fulfilling any goals that you may wish me to do on your behalf. But all I would ask is that you do not push me for the names and positions of these individuals. I'm quite happy to give you the title of the publication that they work for, but I must say, my prince, that to reveal the specific employment roles that they fulfill in these positions could put them at jeopardy should we ever find ourselves in a position where these people are, what's the word used in the community these days, co-opted by external forces.
Of course, Miss Winthrop, a little bit of distance never hurts, and a very generous offer. Your loyalty to Camarilla does you credit. I see no problem in your particular methods and your own contacts, of course. I merely wish for the ability and the influence within said media to be able to get the investigative reporters to investigate what I want them to investigate, and to be able to funnel that information to me, independent of yourself. There is a limit that I can do with investigative reporters, but their information and their ability to sniff out trouble is of great interest to me. However, the editors, the newspaper man, what's written on the actual paper, that will be yours, and any contacts you wish to keep from this little endeavour that are your, when he thinks for a moment, precious flowers, need be yours and yours alone. I would not dream of trying to usurp any of your hard-won informants.
Thaddeus again thinks for a moment before replying. My prince, I can certainly order the higher-ups of those organizations I have pull within to send their little workbands scurrying about the city at your request. That is not a problem. However, as you say, in order to maintain distance, it is important that the information that comes back would follow the usual chains of command, and therefore information would be passed from reporter to editor in the conventional way. The editor or whoever would then pass that information to myself, and I would then relay that information to yourself.
Okay. What I'm going to do now is we're going to roll off, I think, because you do make a very good point, but John wants things for himself. So I'm going to roll my charisma leadership. I'm going to try and pull rank on you and say, well, I'm the prince. Whereas you may roll your manipulation subterfuge to see if you can persuade John that, in fact, it's actually better if I deal with this all for you. Because it's a very good move.
Okay, and I do have persuasion or persuasive under manipulation.
No.
10 would still count, or hopefully double.
I am obviously, unfortunately, still the prince, and so I get -1 DC.
That's 5 successes for me.
Oh, that's 5 successes for me as well. I'm not counting my specialty in charisma for this particular one. So I'll tell you what, we'll roll off. Single die.
1d10?
1d10. 9.
7.
So unfortunately, after a little bit of back and forth, it's like, of course, Mr. Winthrop, eventually the prince wins the argument, purely due to the fact that he is the prince. And he subtly indicates that, well, I could just command you to do it, Mr. Winthrop, but I prefer to keep things simple.
Thaddeus will lean back in his chair and again adopt his usual thinking pose. Perhaps there is a satisfactory workaround. The information, in order to appear unmanipulated, will of course need to go to the editors. The editors can then be requested to send the information to a third party. Perhaps in this instance that would be yourself via an intermediary or someone that you approve of, and that way you get the information you require. Then, once you have done with that information as you will, any information that you are happy to be published would be forwarded to myself, and I would then instruct the editors as to what is to be published, what is to be quashed, and so on. Perhaps that would suit both our purposes.
Yes, Mr. Winthrop, we have already agreed on that as the way we will deal with the printed media. But I want my investigative reporting team to be able to find me information. And you will build that for me. You will find it for me, and you will be happy for it. And if you do it successfully, let's just say I shall make sure that you are, well, depending on how selfless you wish to be, that your plan is looked well after your next Elysium.
Well, my prince, I will certainly endeavour on finding the best of the bloom, the prettiest and most productive roses of the crop.
Excellent. In the meantime, I wish to try out your little roses. There is a couple of gentlemen there is a particular gentleman I would like our little reporters to have a little nose around about. There is a police officer who is currently, let's say, well, he is favourite to become the new chief of police. His name is Adam Dustin. He is, by all intents and purposes, a super cop. He is stringent in his firm belief of the law, a completely spotless record. His wife, a surveyor, also a perfect image of a family of the American dream. I need to, well, I need to find all the skeletons in the closet. I need to find which strings I can pull to make sure that this gentleman falls into line with my way of thinking.
I see. Well, I find it unlikely that there is such a thing as a perfect police officer. It should not be difficult to provide some information. All I ask is that you are patient in this. As I said, growing these flowers will take some time, and finding this information will again take some time. These things cannot be done overnight, but I will of course try to encourage that these things are done as expeditiously as possible.
Of course, I would not dream of rushing an artist's masterpiece, Mr. Winthrop. Is there anything that you require? Have you settled in okay? Is there anything that troubles you these nights that anything I can do as your prince to help out? I do enjoy seeing Clan Nosferatu grow, and it has been troubling to me that you have weakened so.
Well, Clan Nosferatu continues to grow as we can under our current primogen, and we are, of
that. Carry on.
Of course, serving her wishes as best we all can. I think the clan is fortunate to have someone such as Karl Voltaire and Jebediah Stitches serving the primogen, and I hope that she approves of the efforts they go to ensure the clan's continued work. There was a query, though. It has come to my knowledge that you intend for Juan Carlos to be flogged at the upcoming Elysium.
Indeed, the man's incompetence cost us the valuable information that could have been pivotal in finding out anything about our enemies in Sabbat.
Yes, his impetuous nature has almost cost me personally as well, but obviously that pales into insignificance given the current situation that he has thrown himself into. My question is that although we know that he is to be flogged, there have been no notifications put forward to the clan as to who is to be carrying out this punishment. I ask merely out of a sense of propriety, as obviously, given that it is our Elysium, we would need to ensure that we have all the necessary arrangements made.
Well, I'll leave it up to your clan to decide. It would be rather improper if I was to do it myself, and I believe Mr. Carlos deserves more than simply having a ghoul retainer do it.
Of course. You have no specific desires as to who should carry out this punishment?
None whatsoever.
And you leave it entirely in the hands of Clan Nosferatu as to who will administer this?
I trust you to be able to administer this punishment. Very much.
Yes. I'm sure that we will find someone appropriate to carry this out. I really wanted to understand that we've, shall we say, crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's as to the proficient way of exercising this matter. Also, it only remains really the formality of the extending, obviously, the formal invite, shall we say, to the clans. I will be passing that on via the parties. But there was one thing that I think you might be able to assist with regards to this particular Elysium. I understand that you have a particularly fine selections of wines. You are something of a sommelier yourself, I understand, and I think that a selection of the Stanso brews, as I believe they have become known collectively, would add a certain air of gravitas to any such lofty occasion.
Yes, well, certainly. I'm sure it is knowledge to yourself that I supply all the blood within the cellar bar. But if you want a particularly tailor-made Vitae, I cannot, with my duties as prince, be able to give you a vast amount, but certainly a nice selection, perhaps 10 bottles, for the upper crust of the Elysium to partake in, and of course our illustrious hosts.
Indeed. My main concern is that the drinks that we have are more for the lower end of the price bracket, shall we say. The cellar bar with a fighting pit in the lower regions does tend to be considered by some perhaps as the kind of establishment where one drinks from a plastic cup. And I would see that is perhaps at least some areas of the bar be relegated to the past, and ensure that we give across the correct visage for the higher crust, as you say. But if you were able to provide us with some bottles of particular vintage, some obviously that you would find appealing for yourself, and we think the others would as well, I'm sure we can arrange a business agreement in order to arrange stocking for this particular function, as well as any future occasions.
Of course, it is a favour I would do gladly for my friends in the Nosferatu clan, and especially since you are helping me out so selflessly, Mr. Winthrop. He puts inverted commas and italics around selflessly. As we both know, it's not selflessly at all, and we have plenty to gain from it. But you should not sell the cellar bar short. In my first days of New Serum, I've spent many a fantastic evening within the Nosferatu Elysium. It is always the people, not the place, that make an evening, and good company is so hard to find these days.
Indeed. It is certainly opportunity for us to put forward the Nosferatu in the best light possible. Perhaps I should mention to you now ahead of time to give you time to prepare adequately, but we have decided as a clan that given the auspicious nature of the upcoming date, that perhaps it would be appropriate to make it a Halloween-themed evening.
What a splendid idea. I do enjoy a little bit of masquerade, and I'm sure the Toreador would lap it up.
Yes, obviously if you should wish to engage the services of Mr. Stitches, I'm sure that once the invitations go out in the next couple of days, the waiting list is likely to become quite immense.
Yeah.
It's only fair that I, of course, give you warning in advance so that he can work on the costumes of the people in the right order, shall we say?
How very appropriate, Mr. Winthrop. You do think of everything. Please send my regards to your clanmate and tell him I would wish to see him at his earliest convenience over the matter of this Halloween costume.
Most definitely. It will be my pleasure. I do so enjoy conversations with Mr. Stitches. Quite a admirable harpy and member of our clan. Well, my prince, unless you have any other matters, you have certainly given me much to ponder over and methods to employ. I will keep you appraised. I assume this is a matter that you would wish for me to appraise you on personally rather than through an intermediary, or would you prefer that I appraise you as to any updates through a specific individual?
No, I'd like to keep up to date and keep my finger on the pulse in this particular matter, Mr. Winthrop. If you desire or have not the time to meet me personally, then simply a handwritten letter through the door of, and he gives you the address of his apartment block in Nobility Hill, which is his domain. So,
Thaddeus will take the note. He will also pass across, just as a formality, another one of his business cards to the prince. And likewise, my prince, should you need to contact me for any matters, please feel able to contact me at any time. I will keep you appraised of regular updates, and hopefully we shall be able to find ourselves able to continue similar business at some point soon. And Sir Thaddeus goes to Stan. He bows to the prince, and as he's standing there waiting for his coat and hat to be brought over to him, he turns round to the prince with a impish smile on his face. Tell me, my prince, do you read the papers in the mornings, or, well, the night after?
Religiously, Mr. Winthrop.
Well, there may be a certain article that interests you. I won't insult your intelligence by telling you which article it is. I'm sure you'll be able to deduce which article may have been, shall we say, influenced. Again, with a slightly impish smile upon the face of Sir Thaddeus.
I look forward to the next morning's reading, or next evening's reading, I suppose. Good evening.
Perhaps it will serve as a little aperitif as to the nature of the work that I can repeat.
And the prince smiles wickedly. His eyes are light with the possibilities. He's actually met indeed, a competent kindred with a cruel and ingenious mind almost akin to his own.
Sir Thaddeus will put on his coat and again pull the collar up, the hat down low, and obviously not open the umbrella indoors. But as he is ushered to the door, he will turn again, wave the umbrella in a jovial way, and say, "Toodaloo, my prince, have a good evening," and close the door behind him.
Farewell, Mr. Winthrop. The prince says, grinning, "Cain bless the Nosferatu." End scene.